I didn't even have time to talk about the Fantastic Four. There's no time left to talk about mutants and how mutants.
The X-Men are finally home at Marvel Studios. After decades under Fox's control, the mutants returned to their rightful place in the MCU when Disney acquired 20th Century Fox in 2019. Fans expected Kevin Feige to immediately greenlight a massive X-Men reboot, assembling a new team and launching them into the spotlight. Instead, something unexpected happened. Marvel has been quietly introducing mutants through the back door, avoiding the grand reboot everyone anticipated. Deadpool and Wolverine arrived in 2024, but they brought the Fox universe with them rather than starting fresh. Kamala Khan was revealed as a mutant in the Marvels. Patrick Stewart's Professor X appeared in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. These choices signal a deliberate strategy. Marvel is not rushing to reboot the X-Men, and the reasons behind this decision reveal much about how the studio thinks about franchise management, audience expectations, and the challenges of integrating properties that already have complicated histories. X-Men films created a unique problem for Marvel Studios. Unlike properties such as Daredevil or the Fantastic Four, where previous adaptations were either forgotten or poorly received, the X-Men franchise achieved genuine cultural impact. The original trilogy launched the modern superhero film era. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine became one of the most iconic superhero performances in cinema history. Characters like Patrick Stewart's Professor X and Ian McKellen's Magneto defined their roles so thoroughly that replacing them feels almost sacrilegious to many fans. But the Fox universe also became a tangled mess. Timelines contradicted themselves across films. Days of future past reset continuity, yet subsequent movies ignored their own rules. Dark Phoenix failed critically and commercially. The New Mutants limped into theaters during a pandemic. By the time Disney acquired Fox, the franchise was exhausted, creatively spent, yet still carrying the weight of beloved performances and successful films. Marvel faces a problem that did not exist with other properties. When they brought Spider-Man into the MCU, they could skip the origin story because audiences had seen it twice already. They could build on existing goodwill without being tied to previous continuity. With the X-Men, the situation is more complicated. A complete reboot risks alienating fans who still love Jackman's Wolverine or want to see the unfinished stories from the Fox era resolved. But continuing the Fox timeline means inheriting all its contradictions and creative baggage. The solution Marvel appears to have chosen is neither a clean break nor a direct continuation. They are using the multiverse to acknowledge what came before while creating space for new interpretations. This approach allows them to have their cake and eat it too, but it also means delaying the introduction of a proper MCU X-Men team. Marvel Studios has spent 15 years building an interconnected universe with dozens of established characters. The Avengers dominated the first 3 phases of the MCU. Even after Endgame, the roster remains packed with heroes demanding screen time. The Eternals exist somewhere in the background. The Fantastic Four are finally getting their proper introduction. The young Avengers are being assembled piece by piece. Spider-Man continues his journey. The Thunderbolts are forming. Captain America has a new shield bearer. Thor is still around. Doctor Strange is protecting reality itself. Dropping a full X-Men team into this ecosystem creates immediate problems. In the comics, the X-Men exist as a separate corner of the Marvel Universe, dealing with mutant-specific issues and occasionally crossing over with other heroes. In a shared cinematic universe where everything is connected, that separation becomes harder to maintain. If mutants suddenly exist and face persecution, why have the Avengers never mentioned them? If powerful mutants like Storm, Jean Grey, and Magneto are active, why were they absent during the Infinity War? Marvel could explain this through multiverse mechanics or by introducing mutants as a new phenomenon, but both solutions create their own complications. A multiverse explanation risks confusing casual audiences who are already struggling to keep track of variants and alternate timelines. Making mutants a new development undermines decades of X-Men history where mutants have existed throughout human history. facing discrimination and fighting for acceptance. The crowded MCU also means competition for release dates and audience attention. Marvel has already scaled back its production schedule after the mixed reception of Phase 4 and 5 projects. Quality control has become a priority after fans complained about oversaturation and declining standards in CGI, writing, and overall production values. Adding an X-Men franchise on top of existing commitments would stretch resources even thinner. The X-Men have always been about more than superpowers and action sequences. Created during the Civil Rights era, they served as a metaphor for discrimination, prejudice, and the struggle for acceptance. Mutants represented any marginalized group fighting for their place in society. The metaphor has evolved over decades to encompass various forms of otherness, from racial minorities to LGBTQ+ individuals to anyone who feels different from the mainstream. This metaphorical weight makes the X-Men unique in the Marvel Universe, but it also creates creative challenges. The modern MCU exists in a world where superhero acceptance is largely assumed. The Avengers are beloved celebrities. Captain America is a national icon. Even controversial figures like the Scarlet Witch have fans. Introducing a group of heroes who face systemic persecution simply for being born different requires careful world building to justify why society accepts some powered individuals while fearing and hating mutants. Marvel must also navigate the current cultural landscape with sensitivity. The metaphor that worked in the 1960s or even the 2000s may not resonate the same way today. Audiences are more aware of how allegories can flatten real experiences of discrimination. Directly comparing mutant persecution to real-world oppression risks trivializing serious issues or creating uncomfortable implications. Marvel needs to find a way to preserve the themes that make the X-Men meaningful without misstepping into territory that feels exploitative or tone-deaf. The Fox films grappled with this challenge with mixed results. The original trilogy engaged seriously with themes of prejudice and acceptance. Later films often paid lip service to these ideas without fully exploring them. Marvel Studios has shown sophistication in handling complex themes in projects like Black Panther and Captain America: The Winter Soldier, but introducing systematic anti-mutant prejudice into an established universe where powered individuals are generally accepted requires a level of world building that cannot be rushed. Hugh Jackman played Wolverine for 17 years across 9 films. His performance became synonymous with the character to the point where many fans cannot imagine anyone else in the role. This creates an impossible situation for Marvel. Recasting Wolverine invites immediate comparisons to Jackman, and any new actor will inevitably be judged as inferior by a significant portion of the audience. Yet Wolverine is arguably the most popular X-Men character and has historically been central to the team's stories and marketing. Marvel's decision to bring Jackman back for Deadpool and Wolverine was both a celebration and a complication. The film served as a love letter to the Fox era, acknowledging its impact while providing closure, but it also reinforced Jackman's association with the role. Audiences got to see him as Wolverine one more time, which may have satisfied nostalgia, but also reminded everyone of what they will lose when the character is eventually recast. The studio could avoid recasting by simply not featuring Wolverine prominently in their X-Men plans, but this creates its own problems. Wolverine is a fan favorite and a commercial draw. Sidelining him to avoid comparisons to Jackman would be a significant creative and financial sacrifice. Yet rushing to introduce a new Wolverine before audiences are ready risks backlash. This dilemma extends beyond Wolverine. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen defined Professor X and Magneto for a generation. Famke Janssen's Jean Grey, Halle Berry's Storm, and other Fox-era performances left lasting impressions. Marvel cannot simply pretend these versions never existed. They must find a way to honor what came before, while creating space for new interpretations. The multiverse provides a narrative excuse, but it does not solve the emotional attachment audiences have to specific actors and performances. Marvel Studios has watched other franchises struggle with reboots. The Amazing Spider-Man films attempted to restart Spider-Man, just 5 years after Sam Raimi's trilogy ended, and audiences were not ready. The films felt redundant, retreading origin story beats that were still fresh in memory. Sony's subsequent decision to partner with Marvel for Spider-Man's MCU integration proved far more successful precisely because it skipped the reboot entirely and treated Spider-Man as an already established character. The Fantastic Four have been rebooted twice with disastrous results. The 2015 film in particular demonstrated how badly a reboot can fail when audiences feel no enthusiasm for another attempt at characters who have not worked on screen before. Marvel's upcoming Fantastic Four film is taking a different approach, setting the team in an alternate universe and casting established stars, suggesting the studio has learned from previous failures. DC's struggles with reboots and continuity have also provided cautionary tales. The DC Extended Universe collapsed under the weight of trying to build a shared universe too quickly while also attempting to course-correct in real time. The constant reboots and creative direction changes confused audiences and prevented any consistent vision from taking hold. Warner Brothers eventually decided to start over entirely with DC Studios under James Gunn, but only after years of false starts and disappointments. Marvel understands that audiences have reboot fatigue. The constant churn of reimagined properties has created cynicism. Viewers want to see new stories, not endless retellings of the same origin tales. The X-Men present an even greater challenge because their origin is not about a single character but an entire team and concept. Establishing a new X-Men team, building their dynamics, introducing their world, and making audiences care about them requires significant time and investment. Marvel appears to be waiting for the right moment rather than rushing into a project that might fail because the groundwork was not properly laid. The Multiverse Saga has given Marvel a narrative tool to delay hard decisions about the X-Men. By establishing that multiple realities exist, the studio can acknowledge previous X-Men films as happening in alternate universes without committing to a specific continuity. Patrick Stewart's Professor X appeared in Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness as a member of the Illuminati from another Earth. His presence honored the Fox films while making clear he was not part of the main MCU timeline. Deadpool and Wolverine leaned heavily into multiverse mechanics, allowing characters from the Fox universe to interact with MCU characters without forcing a full integration. The film treated the Fox X-Men timeline as a separate reality that can be visited but remains distinct. This approach gives Marvel flexibility. They can bring back actors or elements from previous films when it serves the story without being locked into Fox continuity. The multiverse also provides a way to introduce mutants without contradicting established MCU history. If mutants begin appearing across different realities, or if some multiversal event triggers the emergence of mutants in the main MCU timeline, it sidesteps questions about where they have been all along. The incursions and reality-breaking events of the Multiverse Saga could serve as the catalyst for mutants becoming a widespread phenomenon. However, over-reliance on multiverse explanations risks creating confusion and diminishing emotional stakes. If everything can be explained away as happening in another timeline, or if deaths and consequences can be undone through variants and alternate realities, audiences may stop caring. Marvel must balance using the multiverse as a tool while ensuring that the core MCU timeline maintains coherence and emotional weight. Marvel's long-term plan appears focused on building towards Avengers Secret Wars, a massive crossover event that will presumably involve multiple realities colliding. This event provides a natural opportunity to fully integrate mutants into the MCU. Rather than introducing them piecemeal or forcing an awkward explanation for their absence, Secret Wars could serve as a reality rewriting event that changes the fundamental makeup of the MCU. In the comics, Secret Wars involved the collision and merger of multiple universes. If the MCU follows a similar path, the aftermath could establish a new status quo where mutants have always existed. Characters might remember a world without mutants, but reality itself would be rewritten so that X-Men history is woven into the fabric of the universe. This would be a bold move, essentially rebooting aspects of the MCU while maintaining continuity for established characters and storylines. This approach requires patience. Secret Wars is scheduled for 2027, meaning Marvel is essentially holding the X-Men in reserve until the board can be reset properly. The interim period allows them to seed mutant references, introduce individual characters, and prepare audiences for a larger integration without committing to a half-developed concept. The Fantastic Four film set in an alternate reality may serve as a test run for this approach. If audiences accept the Fantastic Four coming from another universe and being integrated into the main MCU, it establishes a template for how mutants could be introduced. Marvel can learn from whatever works or fails with the Fantastic Four before attempting the more complicated task of bringing in the X-Men. Rather than launching a full team, Marvel has begun introducing mutant characters individually. Kamala Khan was revealed as a mutant at the end of Ms. Marvel, complete with the iconic X-Men animated series theme playing in the background. Namor in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever was heavily implied to be a mutant, though the term was not explicitly used. These breadcrumb introductions allow Marvel to establish that mutants exist without committing to a full explanation or team structure. This strategy has advantages. It normalizes the concept of mutants in the MCU gradually. By the time a proper X-Men team is introduced, audiences will already accept that mutants exist in this universe. Individual characters can be developed without the burden of launching an entire franchise. Kamala can have her own stories and character arc independent of X-Men team dynamics. The approach also allows Marvel to gauge audience reactions. If viewers respond positively to mutant characters appearing in other projects, it builds confidence that a full X-Men film will succeed. If reactions are mixed, Marvel can adjust their approach before committing resources to a major X-Men launch. However, this piecemeal introduction also carries risks. Without a clear framework for what mutants are and how they fit into the MCU, each individual appearance raises more questions than it answers. Audiences want to know the rules of this world. Are mutants common or rare? Do they face discrimination? How long have they existed? Why did they not help during previous crises? The longer Marvel waits to answer these questions, the more confused the world building becomes. Marvel Studios is avoiding a full X-Men reboot because the challenges outweigh the immediate benefits. The Fox films created both opportunities and obstacles. The MCU is already crowded with characters and stories demanding attention. The mutant metaphor requires careful handling in the modern cultural landscape. Wolverine and other iconic performances cast long shadows that make recasting difficult. The multiverse provides flexibility but also risks confusion. Building towards Secret Wars offers a chance to properly integrate mutants in a way that feels earned rather than forced. The decision to wait is not about lacking confidence in the X-Men as a property. It reflects an understanding that these characters deserve to be introduced properly, with the world building and creative foundation necessary to do them justice. Rushing a reboot to capitalize on fan demand might generate short-term excitement, but it could result in a franchise that feels incomplete or poorly integrated into the larger MCU. When the X-Men finally arrive in full force, Marvel wants audiences to feel that the wait was worth it. They want a version of the team that feels fresh and vital, not a retreaded greatest hits compilation or a hasty replacement for what came before. The strategy requires patience from fans who have been waiting since 2019 to see their favorite mutants join the MCU properly. The X-Men will come home eventually. Marvel is just making sure the house is ready before they move in.